What's up, millionaires? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my most favorite TV shows of all time, A Million Little Things. Now, if you've never heard of A Million Little Things, basically it's a show sort of similar to what Friends was, except it's more of a drama and less of a comedy. It's about a group of friends who are there for each other in all the hard times and help each other get through life and things like that is basically what the premise of it is. As of this recording, it just wrapped up its final season on TV. And it had a really fantastic finale, I think, and I'm kind of sad to see it go. I hate when shows end, which is why I decided that I wanted to give my thoughts on not just the series finale, but also the series overall, and hopefully convince more of you to check it out if you've never seen the show before. Now, of course, like no show is perfect. There were some things that even I didn't really like about this show, and one of those things was there were too many time jumps, I think, in like the later seasons. Like they'd cut forward like 6 months or a year or whatever, and they did that quite frequently in like seasons 4 and 5, I think. And it kind of gets annoying, especially when you think that they were planning on only having 5 seasons of the show anyways. Like they decided to sort of wrap it all up in a nice little bow and end the series. It's almost like you could have had at least one or two more seasons out of the show if you hadn't skipped ahead a year, sort of like within the time frame of the show, because that's like a year's worth of stuff happening to these characters that we could have gotten to see. And that's why in a lot of shows that do that, it's like, well, why show us forward in time when you could just show us what got them to that point, and have a whole season based on that. And some shows do that. They'll like backtrack and show you what happened during that time period, and others don't. But I felt like this show felt kind of rushed when it did that, because it felt like they were taking some stuff away from us. And honestly, I wish they would have done more with those in between moments that happened, um, like when they skipped forward in time, because basically through lines of dialogue they explained what happened during that time or whatever, or it's been a year or whatever, and that's all we get of that time period is like just an explanation of what happened. We don't get to see it. And I think as fans we're sort of robbed of those extra seasons we could have gotten out of those time period or time jumps that occurred. And also another problem with that is some of the things that happened when they cut forward were also happening before that, which means it took that character like 6 months or a year or something, however long of a period it was between those episodes or whatever, or even the seasons for that matter. It took them that long to do the thing that they were trying to accomplish. Like it wasn't even something that would take that long to do, and that kind of sort of didn't make any sense. There were a couple things, like especially in this last season, something happens that shouldn't have taken a whole year or whatever to happen, and yet it did, and it kind of throws you off a little bit. And it didn't really match up with how the time skip worked and things like that. It's only like a minor problem for me because I thought this show was fantastic, and like me and my whole family would sit down and watch this show. It's one of those kind of shows where like you're engrossed in everything that's happening, but I feel like that kind of takes you out of it just a little bit when you feel like you're being skipped out on when they take away showing you what happens to these characters all the time. Like I know they can't show you everything, but when you look at shows that are like 20 seasons long, like NCIS or Law and Order and things like that, why can't shows like this be 20 seasons long and we get to see the progression of these characters through their lives or whatever, especially with a drama like this that's essentially meant to mimic real life. Like these characters are put in real life situations. Like why can't we progress with them through that and feel like we're part of the show as well, something like that. I feel like they take that away from you when they do these time skips. And then another issue I had with this show, and that's kind of it really, I only had like two minor issues. Some of the seasons felt too short. Like if you look at the lineup, like I think one season was like 20 episodes, one was 13, the next one was 15 or what, and all the seasons are different lengths. I feel like with a series like this, all the shows should have, or all the seasons should have the same amount of episodes, or at least somewhere close to that. And I hate it when like one season is longer than the other and one is shorter than the next one. Like, why does that happen? Why can't you just fill that season up to be a few more episodes? Why is this one shorter than that one, etc.? Especially considering a lot of what happens in this show is like important character arcs. Now I get that sometimes they want you to wait to see something like in the next season or whatever. Like if there's a cliffhanger or something, they want you to see what happens next, and you have to wait for that. But I still feel like they could have added in a few more episodes to push it to like a 20 episode limit or something rather than 13. Especially this final season, because it felt like it almost makes it feel rushed because they only have 13 episodes instead of what could have been 20 or 22, just to give us one last really good strong season. And that's another thing where those time jumps come in. It's like, because they have a limit on the amount of episodes they're going to do, I don't know if that was from a production standpoint or they just decided on that amount of episodes, but that's where the time skips ruin it, because now they had to push it forward a certain amount of time, but they didn't want to show us that, and that's kind of a problem for this show overall. But now we're going to get into the good stuff, because this show really was a phenomenal show. Like, I think when it started, many people weren't necessarily connecting with it right away. It was one of those shows that was sort of on at the same time as that other drama, This Is Us, which I think was almost ending at the time. I don't know how many seasons that one had exactly, but this was kind of on par with that. It's one of those dramas where like the characters, or where we can feel for the characters, we feel like we're part of it, like they're our friends, they're our family, whatever. And when it started out, it might not have been as strong of a show, but as it progressed, like I loved seeing the fan base start to grow for this show. Now throughout the series there were some questionable things that happened here and there, like not necessarily like from the writer's perspective. Like I don't look at it like, oh, why did they write this to happen? Why did they make this happen to this character? The show is so good that it makes you look at the character like, why did you make that decision? And it's meant to show us sort of these real life situations, which is what I loved about it so much. This show connects you to reality. You can connect to these characters as if you're talking to a friend, as if they're your family, whatever, and you get that deep connection with these characters. So everything that they're going through in this show is a realistic situation. It's not something with like space and whatever. Like people are dealing with cancer and depression and all that kind of stuff you wouldn't necessarily see on a show like Friends, which is meant to be a comedy, but it also has like, yeah, they deal with some hard stuff sometimes, but it's mostly just, it's never really like a major illness or something like that that affects the character. Whereas this show, all kinds of stuff goes on in the show that we can connect with as fans, because we all deal with this sort of thing in real life. We lose loved ones, whatever the case may be, and all of that sort of stuff happens in this show, and they did a phenomenal job of conveying that within those 5 seasons. And I wish they had done more seasons of that. And especially what I like too was that even though, like, yeah, we want to watch TV to not think about COVID and all that kind of stuff, you just want to get sort of taken out of reality when you play video games or watch movies and TV or whatever. But I like the way that, just like many other shows, A Million Little Things incorporated COVID-19 into the show. It was a big character moment. Like, it affected the characters in the show. They had to be sort of separated from each other for a bit. Some things happen with people's jobs and stuff like that. And that affected the characters going forward, especially. Like, it wasn't just like it affected them then and then that was it. Like, it was a permanent sort of thing. And I like that they kept going with this real life stuff and still managed to incorporate a real life scenario into the show to make it even more realistic. Like, now we're all struggling with COVID-19, and now the characters are as well, and we can kind of relate to that. So everything that happened in this show was relatable. there was nothing really out or too out there. There weren't like unrealistic situations or anything like that. Like some stuff you'd see on a show like Friends or whatever. These were all. Every episode was mostly serious. There were funny moments and stuff, but that's what life is all about. You have the funny moments, you have the sad moments, the tragic moments, and the fun moments as well. Basically the good times and the bad times, and all of that happened in this show. And that's what made it so cool, is that it felt like you were watching not just a drama, but also like a sort of reality show in a way, where like we were getting a look into these real people's lives almost. That's how good the acting was in this show. And I thought all of them did a fantastic job, especially James Roday, but that's just because he's one of my favorite actors. But a lot of people were saying he deserves an Emmy for his performance just as his character in this show. And I would have to agree with that. Just all the characters, or all the actors in this show really um, portrayed their characters in a way that was realistic, and you could feel all the emotions and everything else that were going on with these characters. Like you looked at these actors as though they are those characters, and that's what you want out of a show like this, is that you want that realism. You want the person to feel like they are that character rather than like some bland dialogue and things like that. Like every situation in this series, the actors did a phenomenal job of portraying their characters and making us feel like those are real people that are struggling through a very real situation, even though it is just a TV show that we're watching. And it keeps you invested and engrossed with every episode, and not every episode really ended on a cliffhanger, but it's like it felt like they did almost, because every episode left you wanting to see what happens next. Whether it's something with a specific character or the whole group or whatever, they all have their own things going on. Sometimes they're separate, like sometimes they aren't together in an episode, like the friends are in different locations or whatever doing something, but it also does kind of affect them maybe later on or something, where the friend group has to come together to sort of help them get through it or something like that, which I also kind of appreciated, that they're not just always together because they live their own lives, and it's not always going to affect the group as a whole, but they can go to someone in their friend group for help if they need it, like a specific person. If they need help with a specific thing, they'll go to one of their friends or the other friend for a different situation, whatever. And that's how real life is. You'd go to someone for advice on one thing and someone else for advice on another thing or whatever. And that happened in every episode. Maybe some episodes were less engrossing than others, I think. Like I'd say maybe throughout the show there were maybe a couple episodes that felt just like wasted to get us from point A to point B, but there weren't as many as in like other TV shows and stuff. Like every episode at least had something important to at least one character in the show. Even if the rest of the characters weren't doing anything of importance really, they were just joking around or just going to a ball game or something or whatever, and that was like their arc in that episode. Every episode did affect a specific character, and it had something happening to that character that would then tie in later on with something going on or whatever, or it would carry over into the next episode, whatever. So they always tried to at least have every character doing something, which is why you kind of needed to watch every episode. You couldn't just skip out on it. Even though episodes do give you recaps, like previously on A Million Little Things, and it tells you what happened in previous episodes, you still have to watch each episode to know what's happening with these characters. And I'm glad it wasn't one of those shows where it's like, it felt almost wasted, where you don't have to watch this episode or whatever. Every episode, like I said, was connected to each other, and it made it like a sort of steady flow, like basically what real life is. Like you live day to day, so each episode is a day to day kind of thing, or it skips ahead a few days, whatever. And not only was the acting really good, and not only was every episode engaging and leaving you wanting more, but there was also, the series gave you a powerful message of friendship and things like that, and how to get through life when you're struggling with things. Like I'm sure there's some memorable quotes that people could pull out from this show and use in their everyday lives. That's the impact that this show had. It gives you lessons on real life, like not just friendship and the importance of being there for someone and being a friend to someone, but it's also important messages about what it means to be a family, or how to get through the difficulties of life and things like that. And it's one of those shows that you really want to watch when you yourself are dealing with something, because it might help you get through it. I've seen a lot of people commenting on like social media and stuff about this particular show, saying that it helped them get through some things. They felt like they had a family to turn to almost when you're watching this show, and that's how powerful this show really was. And I also appreciate when the actors will get on social media as well and sort of comment about the episode you're watching, or thank the fans and things like that. And a lot of them did that, and I kind of appreciate that, because it makes us feel like, we've been there for them and they're here for us, and without us they wouldn't be there, or whatever. It wouldn't have continued as a show, which is true, because if they don't have the viewership, shows don't continue, and that's just the unfortunate reality of television. So I kind of appreciate that they were willing to take the time to tweet to us or whatever, and sort of read comments and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of shows won't do that. Like, it'll just be like the main show's Twitter page and that's it. But some of the actors from this show actually took the time to sort of talk to the fan base, and I appreciate that when they do that. So if you've never seen A Million Little Things, I highly do recommend that you check it out. I think it's available on Hulu. They did have one season on DVD as far as I've seen, because I bought it on DVD and I haven't seen the rest of the seasons available on DVD. I'm not sure why it's not, but apparently you can stream it on Hulu or just look it up on demand or whatever. It is a fantastic show if you're looking for something new to watch and you haven't seen it. And if I were to give it a rating, I would rate it like a 4.5 out of 5 almost, because I almost want to say it's a perfect show, because I loved watching this show. I loved getting to experience this show over the last 5 or 6 years, however long it's actually been on the air. I know it was 5 seasons, but I think it's been a little bit longer, because they did like the fall finales and all that stuff. And I really enjoyed it, and I think that you will too if you watch it. And everybody has their own sort of reason for liking it, I feel like. I haven't really seen anybody that's sort of disliking the show. Like, maybe some decisions made by like oh, well, why did they have this character do this or whatever. I've seen people complain about that, but you're going to get that out of any show. But if you have seen the show, let me know down in the comments section. What did you think of the show overall? What were some of your favorite moments or quotes and things like that? Let me know all that down in the comments section. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.